Hello, I am a Christopher Walken impersonator, and tonight I'm excited to welcome you to Motivating Moments. Your host tonight, Sean, is here to help you reach your highest potential by sharing stories, that inspire and fuel your inner positivity. Think of it like a power play where each episode gives you the advantage to overcome obstacles, score personal victories. The positivity we create here, it's contagious, passing to your friends, family, and community. Let's keep passing that positivity and shoot for a brighter, more positive future together. Today's guest is a former Division I first baseman at UNLV. He's a performance and life coach. I met him actually at a baseball card show in Maryland a couple years ago as he was doing a cross-country road trip with his wife. And he was hitting up baseball card shows, and that is how we met. I'd like to welcome Ricky Scruggs to the show. Hey, Ricky.
Hey, John, how's it going, man?
Great. I
Yeah.
appreciate you filling in last minute. Just to start off the show really quick. So I know I texted you when you're on vacation to try and get you today, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I was on golf trip.
So I was also supposed to do a podcast with another Ricky this week, and he got caught up at work. And I said, hey, don't worry, because Ricky too is going to do the podcast tonight. And he said, that's awesome. But did he drive across the country, living in his car, only to have an MLB manager hit that car? Then did he move to Mexico? And was he involved with the cartel? And I laughed. And I said,
Some of that I did.
I did say, well, he did drive his RV from Tucson to New York City with his wife, selling baseball cards. And now he is a life coach. So I said, you wouldn't think I would get a commoner to replace you.
Yeah. That's I wasn't actually selling baseball cards. That was the only stop I made at a baseball card show was when I met you. I was going across visiting friends from pro baseball, friends from my last job, my family. And so and it was also some clients in New York that I wanted to meet. So it's kind of odd that we got up that morning and we had to kill some time because we couldn't go to somewhere till that night. In Maryland, my family like wasn't going to be off work or something. So let's kill some time. We look up a card show and then I'm there and there you are. And I was like, sold a few cards. It was wonderful. Yeah. And you're just like this guy that does these amazing things going around the country, meeting celebrities and gosh, you do a lot of cool stuff. And go into games. That's what I wanted to do, is go to game with you.
That's true, because if I remember, my friend and I were just there to kill time until we went to the baseball game that night.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I had plans with the people that I was supposed to meet, and I couldn't go to the game. But uh, love me some minor league baseball. I think minor league baseball is really, really better than big league for me. But then again, I'm a little bitter. I'm a little jaded. Yeah, having not played. So what questions do you have for me today? Let's inspire some folks.
Oh, I'm glad you asked. So first of all, before I forget, I want to talk to you about the video you made that you told me about where a golfer misses a putt and you can't really tell if that's good or bad because
Oh
in the
yeah.
moment they think it's bad that they missed the putt. So could you talk more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember it was like I was just looking at that video. I have a video of me online. A friend of mine, Jim Murphy, he's a performance coach to some of the greatest golfers in the world. Well, when I knew him 30 years ago in pro ball, and then he came and worked with me at my academy. And at that time, he started pursuing this question about peak performance. And at the same time, I got really into God. I got basically going to 5 Bible studies a week, and then I went to seminary. Well, he came to California in seminary, and he was asking me a question about that very thing, like desire, like it's good to want really, really want to be successful or want to make a putt or whatever, but how do you kind of release the results? He asked me, and I was like, well, and at that time I was steeped in the Bible and everything I was thinking about was filtered through the Bible. And I'm like, well, one thing is we don't know what a good result is, because that's our biggest problem, is that we've all taken a bite of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, which people things mean that they think it means that we know what good and evil is. But when I read the Bible carefully, knowing that, the serpent was basically a liar, it looks to me like it was the tree of the awareness of good and evil, like the knowledge of good and evil, which means before that, we didn't know things were bad and we didn't know things were good. We just experienced our life kind of like a dog does. I had a dog that was actually put in quarantine because he was saving our son from javelina pigs, and he got tusked, and we didn't have his rabies shots up, so he got quarantined for 6 months. Well, Pat's just, he went in the quarantine, and he did every day. We went and visited him, and he saw us, but you could tell he's like, you know what? I'm not going to worry about it. I am where I am, and like that whole idea of being present, being focused, not worrying about goods and bads, and staying steady. That's what peak performers need to do. And I realized that day when Jim asked me, I'm like, wow, this is the problem. We think we know what good and evil is. We think we know what's good and bad. And so it's like, if you fall out of a tree and break your arm, everybody would be like, ooh, that's terrible, right? But if that's the reason you didn't climb up 6 more rungs and then break your neck and be paralyzed for life, well, now the broken arm was actually a good thing. And you could go back and forth on any story and figure out, and obviously we've all had things that were bad in our lives that we thought were terrible. And we look back now and say, well, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have met this person. And, so the key to peak performance and standing over $1 million putt is to realize that I don't really actually know what is good for me in the grand scheme of things. So why should I press for a result that I don't know if it's good or bad? But I do have an obligation to do my best, love my opponent. That's another thing that came out of the Bible, was this idea that you got to love your opponent, not hate him. He's your partner in the dance. It's a whole thing. Anyway, yeah, so that's what I teach people, or do the best I can. It's what I try to live, but I was just on the golf course wanting to break my clubs a couple of days ago, so I don't really want to say I've got this all mastered, right? No. But yeah, I think about these things when I'm on the course, and I'm like, you know what? I don't know anything. It's best to just leave it up to the great possibilities that could happen if I just do my best. So was that a good enough long-winded answer for you?
You gave me another idea. I should have my golf coach be on the podcast
Oh, there you go.
because she books 2 months out, so I got to get on her schedule. Okay. And then you mentioned your friend Jim Murphy. You told me about his book, Inner Excellence. We can
Yeah,
do a quick ad for that. I read the
yeah,
book.
it's incredible work. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's one of the best, if not the best, book on performance out there. Yeah, it's very heady, and it's a lot of it's a one you're going to read over and over and over the rest of your life and refer back to like a manual. So it's really quite good. A lot of the ideas in there started from these conversations that we had together 15, 20 years ago. It was like amazing stuff. Yeah, I have the amazing compliment from him, who has achieved so much. I was a pastor for the last 12 years, and I only been a performance coach for about 5 years with one client and 3 with all these with a full business. But he said that I've influenced him, how he thinks about performance, more than anybody in the world. And this guy's interviewed like people that I can't even compare to as far as their education goes. So it's really quite a compliment that he calls me and we get to chat. He's a very stimulating guy. Like he asks the great questions and gets my mind going. Kind of like that guy that has all these crazy ideas. Yeah, so it's
I
wonderful.
remember, yeah, I remember telling you about how I finished his book. He talks about Henrik Stenson in the last chapter. And as I'm finishing it on Audible, I'm headed to a golf course to see Henrik Stenson play, and had the opportunity after his round to talk to him about working with Jim Murphy. And I feel like that was a defining moment in my life. And it changed my life because I was on a downhill this summer, and now I'm back going uphill, and I'm
That's
connecting
awesome.
dots now. But
It's
because
very, very,
of my love of baseball, we met, and then I read that book, by your friend Jim, Inner Excellence. So all the listeners
Mhm.
can go look it up on Audible or Amazon. And then I see the same player that was his first PGA client that same day. That's not a coincidence. Yeah,
There's
that's
the
pretty
cover so
amazing
people can
stuff.
see it. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
when
it's very serendipitous, right? Things don't really happen for an accident. So I think it's pretty neat.
there
I,
was one hole where Henrik made a 40-foot putt, and I went up to him and I said, Jim Murphy would be proud of you.
is that how you caught his attention? He goes, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when he was working with Henrik, and so it's just so interesting to hear about these guys' lives and how they, it's all, very confidential when he doesn't tell me anything that's, anything aside from sport. But the the amount of stuff they have to deal with, like as far as just going to the course and like having, what I mean, just having so much pressure and press and things to deal with. Like you have to learn how to. I think what Jim is super good at is getting people to get their routines down and sort of getting them to put up good boundaries so that they can really focus, and also making their life off the course a rhythmic, sort of uh, pattern that they just live on the course as well, which is something to really learn. This is amazing. It's like you're you're the performer that you're going to be always. You don't turn on your performance mode when you get on the course. And yeah, Jim is super good at that. Like finding that battle rhythm. I have another client he's a military guy and he's a very good entrepreneur too. And he calls it a battle rhythm. I guess he learned it through, I adopted that term from my clients, a battle rhythm. I just love that. So yeah, we're always in it, like in the relationships, um, off the course, off the field, outside of your business. It's all the same. It's finding that rhythm.
Being a member of the military, yes, I can tell you how important it is to stick to your routine. We're faced with tough tasks every week, and they give us tools for our resiliency. It's super important. And I do remember Henrik specifically telling me how important it is to have a routine.
Mhm.
And the Inner Excellence book focuses on being able to, you should actually score how well you keep to your routine and follow the process, not focusing on the result, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, grading, you don't really want to even use the word grading as far as like you reflect on your performance and you really reflect on matters of your heart and how you approached the game. For me, the biggest thing is loving your opponent and being grateful and you look back and go, okay, did I get caught up in myself or was I actually present so I can love my opponent my best? And a lot of times you look back and you think, yo, I think I was present, and you realize, no, I was caught up in the moment. I was caught up in circumstances and that call or something happened. It just, I think the biggest thing is self-awareness. Becoming aware of when you're not present is the most important key to being present so that you can sort of gently bring yourself back. And it's just knowing yourself and getting to know, you know, where your weaknesses are when it comes to what triggers this feeling of, oh gosh, I got to prove myself, or I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy to be here. Like there's a lot of worthiness work that we have to do because we have to realize that this concept that we are born with, that we're born into, which is you have to earn your way to self-worth. Like it's who you know or what type of work you do or how much money you make that gives you this acceptance and worthiness. And so what I do as a Christian, like coaches talk about your infinite worth that you are created with and what God thinks of you. And you realize in accepting that it's really all grace. But in a competitive environment, I'm there to raise my game so that I can raise yours. So I can, we want to be as good as we can, not for ourselves, but for our team and for even our opponent and the crowd. We want to inspire people. Everybody's looking for great moments, like exclusive, cool moments. And we don't realize that that's not always a win. Sometimes it's overcoming adversity. Yeah, a lot of people talk about this stuff. It's me.
Okay, next question. I want you to talk about how you decided to become a performance coach at this time. Want you to push so all the listeners can hear how important it is to have a performance coach or a life coach in their life, because there's times where you need that inspiration, that guidance to help you focus.
Yeah, that's an incredible question. Thanks for asking. It's important. Well, one thing as far as coaches go is I just, my dad's a great guy, and but if you ask a lot of people, the biggest influence in their life, and it's these sports coaches they have in their little, if they have good ones or bad ones, they're very, very influential in the way you think we grow. Um, I was fortunate to have two great coaches and then one really bad coach, but even the bad coach, some of the things he would harp on still ring in my head, and they're important. And actually, he was right. Even though I didn't get it back then. So, and then you realize that like Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan and everybody who's ever done anything great didn't do it on their own. They had someone that had a third perspective who loved them enough to tell them, not just good job, but kick them in the butt when they needed it and give them some accountability. And also years of experience ahead of them. Generally, coaches are 30 years older, 20 years older than their, not always, but a lot of times. And just by sheer, I have most of my clients are in their 30s or, 30, 40, some are 20. And I'm like, I have 30 years on you, just in life experience, not to mention that I've read at least 24 books a year for the past 10 years. Like I just devour books. And so I have all this to offer. And when you have a third person who's not your family, who's not your friend, it's not a pastor, it's a different relationship than work. And what I've learned over the last 5 years coaching is something happens when you actually pay the money. And this is weird because I used to coach everybody for free. I was like a pastor, and when I started being a coach, I used to be, I'll just coach you for free, and it was good. But something happens when you lay out a little bit of money for yourself. Like when you actually say, I'm going to invest in myself, and I'm going to pay this person to be in my corner. Um, there's a transformation that takes place just from that. And then, of course, if you have a good coach who has, I think it's important for them to have the gift of coaching. That in the Bible, it's called the gift of exhortation or the gift of counsel. And if they have that gift, then they're going to be able to sort of listen to you really well and then hit you with that main program that you've had your whole life that has just been sort of a false belief that's kind of been holding you back. And when if I talk to you long enough, I'm going to get to that heart, the core heart issue. And if we can dissolve the lie that was, created a belief early in your life, it can shift your perspective, man. And then you're doing things that you wouldn't normally do. You feel worthy to do. You feel you can do. And that's the joy of my job. So the way I became a coach is largely because I had a baseball academy that I opened in 2003. I was training people in how to hit, and then fundamental skills that I knew of. And then I became a Christian. And at the same time, Jim Murphy was starting like a business of athletic training as far as like physical. And then he started talking, he was doing the mental. And then the mixture of what I was going through spiritually just sort of upped that whole thing. And we would just talk and get into all these conversations. And God revealed some things to me in business in competition, because I was a guy who was very competitive, but yet kind of wanted to be accepted and didn't like, unless you made me really mad, I wasn't going to really go my hardest. And so when I was having trouble in business because people were attacked, I had like the biggest baseball academy in town. Everybody was trying to take my clients and take my trainers, and it was just competition. And I should have known that. I was a Christian at the time. I was like, God, I don't know what to do. Normally I would just want to destroy them. Let's, just go kick their butt like in baseball. And then he says to me, love your opponents. Love my opponents. So I was in this chapter of my life where I would, it's funny I said chapter, but I would go on these famous scriptures I heard since I was a little kid. I would actually go and read the page before and the page after and find out what they really meant. 9 times out of 10, they didn't mean what I thought they meant the whole time. And so I went and looked up love your opponents, and it said, love your opponents, for he causes the sun to shine on the righteous and the unrighteous, and the rain to fall on the righteous and unrighteous. And immediately I got a baseball analogy out of it. It hit me. I was like, oh, it might be his day to shine. It might be his moment in the sun, like they talk about in baseball. Or it might be a day like Bull Durham, where it says sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes it rains. Right. And it just hit me that, oh, it might, like, I used to kind of back off sometimes, especially with friends, if I was playing darts or pool and they were really competitive, and I just, I'd kind of back off. And I realized that wasn't love. When I got nervous in baseball, when I was at the highest levels playing pro ball, and I was getting nervous, that comes from self-centeredness. That isn't loving your opponents. That's not bringing your best. And so if you can shift away from self and more onto, I want to do this for my team, I want to do this for the opponent and for the fans, it takes away that nervousness and brings you power. And so when I realized that, I had a kid who I did baseball lessons with when he was 8 years old, and he was in college, and I was a pastor. And I was coming to the end of probably my pastorship because I could see that it wasn't really for me. There was a lot of things going on with COVID and these things, little conflicts that were just kind of weird, political. And I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. And his mom contacted me and said he's really struggling about to quit college. And he had a full ride where he was at, and he was about to quit. And so he did leave there and went to junior college. And then finally she reached out again and said, well, I'm really busy, da, da, da. And she insisted on paying me. She's like, I'm going to pay you and I need you to talk to him. So she like forced me to basically be, because I was like, I'll talk to him for free. But then I was too busy all the time. She says, no, I know you. If I pay you, you'll do it. Like, you'll be obligated, not for the money, but because you feel obligated. So then I started working to him there every week. And that was basically his thing, was not feeling belonging. He kind of felt rejected. Turns out when he was younger, he was very large, like big kid, and he played football. And so he was always like 8 years old playing with 11-year-olds and not feeling like he was in the clique and not feeling like he was a part of it. And so I just had this idea, like, you know what? James Bond, when he goes to the ball, like, everybody's worried about what they're wearing and who they're talking to and are they coming across good and everything like that. But they're all like stuffy. But James Bond is there to find out, like, who kidnapped the girl. Like, he's on a mission, right? And so since he's on a mission and he doesn't really care about what's really going on, he's the coolest cat there, right? He's like, whatever, and I thought, what we need to do is be on a mission. When we go into a team, it should be about serving. The Bible tells us how to be the greatest. And it actually tells us how to be the greatest, because Jesus goes, if you want to be the greatest, become the servant of all. So I thought, wow, so the way to be great is to have an attitude of service towards your team. And I was like, wow. So I put him on a mission and talked about the traits of a champion and standing in the gap for everyone and representing love, something bigger than yourself. It's a big program, but he worked with me for 2 years, and he actually ended up walking on, no scholarship at I don't want to give away who he is because I don't want to be talking all about it. But anyway, he became an All-American. He had 20 home runs, hit 400, and led the nation in RBI with 93 RBI. And if it wasn't for COVID, there was only 7 rounds that year. He would have gotten drafted, but he got overlooked. And then he ended up playing pro ball, independent pro ball for several years. But yeah, great kid. And that made me think, wow, there's really something to this biblical champions model that I've sort of come up with over the years. And I used it myself to be able to be a better competitor and feel free. And I've always been talking to Jim and learning from him and trading these concepts. And I was like, okay. So when I when I was taking that trip, I was actually trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I was always counseling people on the way, da, da, da. And they were like, you should be a counselor. So I officially started the business in 2022. Just, yeah, it's been the fact that I get to talk to people and see them grow and like they thank me after they give me money. It's like awesome. It's the best job. They're always so grateful.
For all you listeners, I'll put Ricky's info in the comments section if you want to get in touch with him.
Wonderful.
Ricky, I know that you have so many lessons and stories to share with us, so we'll have you back for another episode. I
would love
really
that.
appreciate you coming in last minute, just back from vacation. I can probably send you some golf tips online.
I would love it. I need help. No. Um, yeah. Yeah. Golf is actually, just take it on for a second. I took a year and tried to play poker to learn patience and emotional control and resisting the urge to gamble. Actually, that's what I discovered that I would learn. Got done with that and decided I'm going to actually try to be good at golf. I may have bitten off more than I can chew. Like, this game is so hard. It's mentally very, very challenging. Like, especially if you think you're an athlete and you think you should be able to hit this ball every time. It's very challenging, and the mental is so learning a lot about it. It's a game of mistakes, and so it's really cool to play to learn from this game, and try to figure out the mental lessons of it. But you guys, you listeners, need to listen to this podcast faithfully, because Sean is a guy who's interested in people. I haven't known him a whole lot, or enough anyway, but the time I've had conversation with him, he's very interested in people and inspiring people, and I guarantee you he'll end up with a lot of guests that will have such great perspectives. And yeah, I think it's going to be valuable for your time. And he's keeping it short, like 20 minutes. So yeah, tune in every single week. You'll probably be really glad you did. But thank you for having me on. I'm honored. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricky, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, we'll talk soon. Talk to you later, buddy.